Welcome to the Braemar Life Skills Academy podcast. The world is changing faster than ever, and the world of education is too. Advances in psychology, biology, and a whole range of other fields have opened up new lines of thought about the purpose of school and how it can best serve a new generation of students. Join me on the Braemar Life Skills Academy podcast every week to explore these new ideas. In our last episode, we spoke with Dr. Kevin Bryan. Dr. Bryan is a professor at the University of Toronto about OpenAI's new product, ChatGPT, and the implications of artificial intelligence on things like education, communication, and the world at large. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Chef Shai Mandel. Chef Shai is the founder and president of Rooks to Cooks, a cooking education and intervention program used, among other places, at Braemar College. Welcome back to the Braemar Life Skills Academy podcast. I'm Mike Helsby here at Braemar College in downtown Toronto. Very, very happy to be joined by what I'm going to describe as my new favorite podcast guest, Chef Shai Mandel. I'm going to explain why you're my favorite in just a minute, but Shai, welcome to the program.
Shai.
Pardon me, Shai.
I know why I'm your favorite. It's because I fed you banana bread and brought you maple syrup.
Yeah, you nailed it. For the folks who can see at home, got it on camera. This is not something that was store-bought at the last second. This was something that maybe you can explain what's going on with my delicious banana bread and my maple syrup.
Yeah, well, I like a lot of hobbies, and I get so much like joy and fulfillment from making things, whether it's like maple syrup, food, pottery, like anything that's like taking something and that is nothing and then creating something. And then if I get to share that something with people and like give them that, feed them that, have them drink out of a mug, whatever it may be, like just like that's what I live for, honestly.
It's no surprise that that's true, both the enjoyment of the process and the sort of reciprocal and community-based nature of the product. We're going to find out quite a lot about you, Shai, in this interview, but I mean, it's not hard for the audience to see why someone like you might end up being the founder and president of something like Rooks to Cooks. We're going to go all the way in. We're going to find out about Rooks to Cooks. We're going to talk school nutrition and cooking programs, but I want to start kind of just with you and
Sure.
figure out how this all got going.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us a little bit about when cooking became a part of your life, your history as a cook. You've since become an educator. When did that come into the mix? There's some baking metaphor to be used here, but yeah, talk to us about how the cookie got made.
Yeah, the cookie got made. Way back, I have a terrible memory. Little snippet of it. I don't know what day it is today. Don't ask me that question.
I'll start recording.
Yeah, exactly. Memoir, Shai. Yeah. Okay, as far as I can remember, my earliest memories are probably when I was in grade 3 and 4. I was left to my own devices a lot. Like I'm appreciative of so much the freedom my parents gave me. My dad was a businessman and worked all the time. My mom was always in her projects, and she's kind of where I get my creative side from. So in her creative projects, huge photographer, was a teacher too. So she had a lot going on. And I was a 90s kid, so there was a way less helicopter-ish parenting back then.
Oh, the good old days.
You know, let us free to roam around the streets on our rollerblades, you know, like those times. So I just remember like cooking for myself. Like it just evolved. Like, honestly, I can't remember how. My mom doesn't cook. I actually don't know the last time I've seen her ever cook. I don't even know. Maybe, like, I was before I have a memory. My dad, he barbecued. He cooked a little bit. So I probably picked up a little bit from him. I'd say they taught me how to eat, but I kind of figured it out myself on how to cook. And I just, like, loved going back full circle, like, taking something and turning it into something else and having it be something I can eat and enjoy and like be just curious like through food. So that was how I got into it. And then that evolved from my mom saying, "Oh, what's for dinner today?" And I'm like 7, you know, like, well, here's a zucchini, like I'll just fry it up in a pan.
Wow.
So it really was very natural and like just authentic. And it was all about play and exploring that.
It sounds like there was a lot of creativity and, as you say, kind of an organic process. Yeah. Coming from 2 parents who were educators, I also got to kind of see that as a model when I was a kid as well. And I think there is a lot of creativity and impetus for exploration that goes with that. Was there also a feeling, or did there come to be a feeling of responsibility over the family and even maybe over like the nutritional aspects of your food at that point, or was it all just fun and creativity?
You know, my parents are both, they both value health and nutrition. They always have. And so I do remember like getting snippets of information from them growing up, like, oh, this is healthy, or, you know, let's take our vitamins, or like, let's have organic food. Like, that's just always been ingrained in my family. So yes. And then once I gained the skills, I think I was just viewed as like another like help to help out with the family. And my mom didn't like to cook and never really cooked. So it was like, great. And my dad was working. So, and I have a younger sister. It just kind of fit. And I took it on, and I was proud to have that role. And I enjoyed cooking for myself and my family. I enjoyed rollerblading home at lunch and making myself a sandwich and like getting back and, you know, watching that sticking around while I ate my sandwich, you know, like that was my childhood. And it evolved like pretty quickly into just cooking organically and making good food organically. Like, I cannot tell you why I have those abilities. It was just like, this tastes good, this doesn't taste good. This texture is nice, this texture is not good. And like kind of learning from that. And then it turned into kind of viewing it as like a craft I can perfect, and I can really do a great job in learning and like delving into it and like self-learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're so well positioned for that, and then for educating young people through that process. We know what the child's brain is like and how plastic it is and how many connections it can form. And it can be difficult to capture that kind of creativity and then the excitement and the sort of appreciation of craft that comes with it if you're coming at it from a place of little experience, perhaps later in life. And so that's me. I'm coming to this from the perspective of a kid who was very lucky to have a mom and dad who both kind of cooked. Neither of them were brilliant cooks, and they won't be offended by me saying that. We've had long talks with my two younger sisters about the paucity of diversity in our diets earlier in life, but the responsibility was never on me. And so I got to kind of watch day after day as plate after plate was put in front of me, and I got to take on that kind of, I'm going to call it a sort of Western attitude to food, where we are somewhat distanced from the sources of it and the processes by which it comes to be. It arrives in front of us pre-made a lot of the time, whether that's by our parents or by some restaurant or fast food organization. And so as an educator, when I got into this position and started understanding nutrition a little bit, I had to ask a lot of questions that I didn't really have the background to answer. And so I ended up reaching out to a few people like yourself, and we ended up being able to answer some of those questions together. Thank goodness. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. I want to start with a kind of much bigger question, just to justify why this should be, I think, why cooking and nutrition should be a foundational part of a student's education. Today, as an experienced cook, as somebody who's got more expertise in the kitchen than the vast majority of people, what are you still getting from it? What does it bring to your life, just to be working with food, to be serving food? How do you think of that?
I feel like food is like the gift that keeps on giving in so many different areas. Like, I'll start, obviously, it being like a craft that you can perfect. Like, it's like anything else, like any other hobby or any other interest that you just can continue to learn and invest in. So whether you start off young or start later in life, like wherever you start, there is no end, and you can continue to push yourself and grow. And the fulfillment, like the personal fulfillment that you get from that is amazing. Like, it gives you confidence. It gives you reward. That reward, like, I achieved something really challenging. It's interesting. It's cool. It's science, it's everything. So like that, it being an avenue in itself that you can invest in, you can grow in, and it never ends. That's one reason why it's worth investing your energy in. It's like why you read. There's a million books.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Or like anything else. It's just, if you're interested in it, it's a great hobby and interest. Then you have the aspect of it being like something that you can use to nourish yourself. Like, it's legitimately fuel for your bodies. You can't eat a book, you know. Well, maybe you could, but I don't know. Maybe a little salt will do for it. But, you know,
lots of fiber.
Lots of fiber, that's for sure. But it's nutrients. It's like legitimately healing your body, helping your body. Well, depends on what you eat, right? But it can be very good for you. It can actually slow aging. It can progress aging. It can help you see better. It can grow your hair thicker and more luscious. Like, it's legitimately like a healing food. Like, food is healing. Food can be healing. So to use that for that reason, also for me, that health nutrition is a value of mine. So that is part of what I use food for. Then it's a conversation. It's a connector. It's an opportunity to spread joy and love and show people you care. Like, for me, it's like the first step to developing a relationship. Like, if I can give you an example, these two women came over for dinner last night because I needed a dog sitter. I was like, instead of going out for coffee or instead of going out to a restaurant, come to my house, let me cook for you. And like, honestly, by the end of it, we're best friends. You know, it's just, food is like that bridge to developing relationships or even maintaining relationships, because everyone's sitting there on the same page, like to energetically be on the same, same space, same level, same energy. That's a way to connect with other people. And then, food is, like I said, joy, sharing joy, but also it's like something you can share, like knowledge. And then that's where also I get a lot out of it. It is one of my topics that I like to discuss the most, and I like to share the knowledge that I have and the skills that I have with other people. Because it's just like, for me, there's no cap to what it brings to my life. And every day it's like something else, why I love it and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Just echoing all of those sentiments. When we run our cooking club, at the beginning of every term, we try to do at least one session that's more informative than experiential. And we try to talk a lot about the different vectors of health that are touched by nutrition and cooking. We focus on 3. We talk about students' financial health and how the difference is long-term between knowing how to select food and how to cook food for yourself, and not knowing those things can be quite literally in the 6 figures. Like, it's no exaggeration to say that you will be financially significantly healthier just by gaining this one skill set. The second thing we talk about is of course physical health, and we try to give them the basics of macronutrients, micronutrients, nutrient ratios, exactly how to make those nutrients available in the best ways, et cetera. And just talk about like some of the things you mentioned, how adaptogens work, how anti-inflammatory foods work, what that means long term, especially as you get into our age range where joint pain begins to be a thing, and energy levels start to become a bit more noticeable in their fluctuations, et cetera. And then the third thing that we always emphasize, and we do this in a couple different ways, we emphasize community health explicitly in our instruction, but then at the end of every single session, we try as best we can to get the fast cooks to slow down a bit and wait for the eating until we can all be gathered around the same table, around the same food. And I express this to them in perhaps overly romantic terms, but I think of that act as being something like the fundamental human act. It's the thing that makes us human.
Yeah.
I think in every culture across time, since the very beginning, when we became Homo sapiens, we have, wherever we are in the world, gathered usually around hot food in a quiet place with the people we are closest with in our lives. And though we may not even be sharing words together, we're sharing something that is, you only have to do it once to realize how foundational it is to your personal wellness, to that pursuit of the good life. And the students experience that immediately too. It's something that sneaks past you, I think, in our culture. We get used to
the fast food.
Yeah, sitting in front of a TV,
Yeah.
we're moving so fast, and so much of our food culture has reacted to that by giving us solutions that are on-the-go food. We miss the community aspect. And if you just force yourself to sit down once or twice with the people you like and the food that you enjoy, it really does maximize your wellness. I think in some ways that are sort of ineffable. You can't even really describe what they do. Mm-hmm. You're obviously someone who appreciates that to a pretty full extent. I want to talk about how education kind of entered this world. You were cooking from age 7 or 8. You felt that the wonderful feedback of doing something valuable for people you love. You felt yourself developing your craft, all those most wonderful parts of life. But you got to make money in this world, right? And you were moving through, I think, kinesiology at Wilfrid Laurier University. Mm-hmm. Shout out to WLU, my hometown. And then 2015, Bachelor of Education came along and you're thinking about becoming a teacher. Can you just kind of walk us through what was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, well, to become like the teacher, why I was already on the track to becoming a teacher, and why I already made that decision that I want to teach for my life, that came back. That started a long time ago, like when I was younger, and just like also being, I guess, a very self-aware person. Just loving that, to share knowledge, like whatever I was into, it was like all I wanted to do was share it with people, you know. And I think maybe it's like, oh, I'm into cooking, I want to share it with people. I'm into pottery, I want to share it with people. It's like whatever I'm into, I just want to share it. Like it's just, it brings me joy, I want to bring other people's joy. So that's kind of something I identified early on. And then, okay, you know, what are the sort of careers that I could do that I get to exercise what I love the most, you know. I wasn't like trying to like recreate the wheel, or look for voids in who I am and like be like, I need to fill these and then pursue careers that I can do this. It was just more like what's naturally me and what careers can I shine as me. And so teaching was like, you know, check, like love people. I love working with people. I love just, you know, shared experiences. I love sharing my knowledge. Okay, teaching is great. So once I figured that out, I did a co-op program in grade 11 in which I was placed in a grade 3 class. And that for me was, okay, yes, I love, it was like a confirmation, like I do love teaching. And then from there, it was like, what's the path to teach? I need an undergrad. What do I like? What am I good at? Science, nutrition, you know, movement, because I loved sports and I love being fitness, wellness. So, okay, kin kind of makes sense. Went to kin. You know, it was like a big gym class the whole time and loved it. And I was, at that point, at 14, I was already working too, like, you know, cooking, doing cooking jobs. Anytime I needed a job, I would do a cooking job because I love to cook. And so it was teachers college. Once I got there, that was like, I'm teaching. I'm only teaching. There's no cooking now. And I missed it desperately. And I had these cooking clubs running in the schools I was teaching at. And it was like I saw so much more growth and benefit from those cooking clubs in my students than I did my math classes, my, you know, science classes, my phys ed classes. Like what those cooking clubs were doing for those kids couldn't, you know, essentially the other subject matters couldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And I really care about using my life on this planet to make the biggest positive impact I can. And so if I'm going to spend my energy doing anything, well, I'm going to spend it teaching kids to cook, seeing the impact it can have. Like, you know, for me, it was like, yeah, I could be another math, science, phys ed teacher and do a great job at it and be as innovative as I can in those areas. Or I can see this complete void that exists. Because at that time, there was no cooking programs for kids. Yeah, there was like one here, one there. Maybe a mom came into a school and ran an after school program. But it was like, let's make cupcakes or let's make pizza. You know, there wasn't really much. And so I saw it as an opportunity and to really make something of this, like create something that was just had so much integrity and value, and excellence is important to me. I want to be the best. Yeah. It's not good enough unless it's the best. So let's be the best. So that kind of was the journey from like realizing, yes, teaching is where I want to go, to actually, no, teaching, cooking is where I want to be. It was kind of a path that had a little bit of couple stray, you know, paths, but then it kind of came back and made sense.
I would almost hold that up as the model for what I hope happens in all of our students' lives. Like there is an experimental period that I think is necessary from, let's say, 18 to 25 or 30. But we hope that the experiments are all aimed at getting a life of alignment where passion, need, purpose, etc., all are participatory in the same act. Right? We live in, I think, a society that tends to fragment us a bit. We specialize in a profession, and then we sort of switch off that part of our life or that part of our brain when we make the increasingly long commute home, if you're living here in Toronto, and then you're someone else, right? And maybe you also have a third space with perhaps friendship or you know, whatever your hobbies are. So often those three things or those four things don't necessarily come together in the same act, and you seem to have found a life that includes all of them, again, in a very organic way. Is that how it feels?
I think I'm trying, and just to speak to what you said for a second, because I just really want to, you know, students who are listening to hear this, like, experimentation begins the day you figure like, oh, I'm going to start experimenting. If that's like back kind of like what I experienced back when I was really young, my career exploration began like then, you know, it began then when I was that young. And it's just figuring out what you like, as you said, what you need in a job, in a career. Like, we all have to just accept that we need to have a job. Like, I wish that wasn't so. We live in a capitalistic society, so you need to make money in order to live. That's a need. Mm-hmm. But there's more important needs, like, what do you actually need in a job, in a day-to-day, that when you are done working, you don't feel like you're going to feel tired, but it's a type of tired that you feel after it. The tired that I'm describing that you want to run away from is I feel like my soul is like tired. I feel like this job took from me, and it's like not took more than it gave, like, and the only give can't be money.
Yeah. Like,
life is way too short, and nothing is guaranteed. No matter how old you are, tomorrow is not guaranteed. Like, you don't have to, but I'll tell you from experience, you have to.
Yeah.
Prioritize your well-being in all the decisions you make in life. Physically, mentally, but when it comes to career, you have to prioritize what you need. And I've learned that I need a job that I can meet people, new people, develop new relationships. I need that because that fulfills my heart and soul. I need a job that I have creative freedom, and I get to just kind of, my job is my playground. I am in a job now that I get to write recipes, I get to create amazing, cool programs that are just unbelievable, and I am so proud of my work that what I develop, it's like nothing is like it. No one does what I do. That's really exciting and fulfilling to me. I also need a job that I can give back in, like give back my knowledge, my skills, share that with people, but help other people. I need that. If I don't have that, I don't feel fulfilled. And I need a job that I make good money at, because I don't want to feel stressed out and hard done by. And I have a life. I have a partner. I'm going to be building a family. I need that as well. So I can go on and on about what I need, but I think the point is that I want to share with your students is, instead of worrying so much about what it is going to be, just take more time to reflect on what I need. What do you need? If you're not someone who needs to go to a job, you're fine from working from home. That opens up a bajillion possibilities. If you're someone who does need to get out of your house and go work somewhere, that kind of narrows it down for you. Like, I'm talking like get really basic. Mm-hmm. What do you need? Do you need a job that you're by yourself? Do you need a team? You know?
Yeah.
Do you need a job that gives you creative freedom, or do you like to be more of a follower? There's no right or wrong answer. Just figure out what you need, and then what you want is like the icing on the cake. You know, and you can put some sprinkles on it and whatever.
We're going to use a lot of cooking metaphors.
Yeah, like we should have put what's the word I'm looking for? Where you put like a risk before watching something, like a disclaimer.
A disclaimer, yeah.
So yeah, sorry everyone, this podcast will make you feel hungry. It's just going to happen. You're going to have to get into it.
I got to sit here smelling this delicious banana bread the entire episode. So if anyone out there is feeling hungry, I mean, sympathize with me, please. Have you ever heard of the concept of ikigai?
No.
Okay, so you just did a really wonderful job of explaining the Japanese precept of ikigai, which is a model for discovering purpose in life and fulfillment. Right. And I think you nailed all four of the aspects, but if you can imagine sort of a diamond shape where each of the corners of the diamond is represented by one of the great forces in your life. So what you need, especially in terms of income, security, safety, et cetera, is one of those vectors. What you're good at, what you love, and what the world needs are the other four. And then there's interesting overlap between those four, and then especially in the middle, which they would call the space of ikigai or purpose. It strikes me that we should probably and can probably do a much better job in early education of encouraging the type of reflection and self-awareness that you're talking about. Because I don't think the average person really knows what they need, especially in terms of responding to their personalities. You were mentioning a few different personality types. We know we've got the ocean model for behavior types. Everybody falls on some scale between very open and perhaps very closed, very conscientious and not so conscientious, very extroverted versus very introverted, very agreeable versus less agreeable, and either very or not so very neurotic. And these behavioral or personality types correlate with outcomes in later life. So they can be discovered, and they can be discovered pretty accurately using any number of free available personality tests online. I think 16personalities.com is one of them that's pretty good. But I was never encouraged to ask those questions of myself. I was more encouraged, I think, early in life to look at professions, or at least what I could see of professions, and kind of ask, could I see myself doing that? But my view of the professional sphere was so limited as an 8 or a 10-year-old that I didn't really have a good range of choices available. I certainly wouldn't have looked up at the job market and said, oh, there's Chef Shai or a Chef Shai type doing what she loves while educating, while making money, while leading a team, right? I saw doctor, lawyer, policeman, fireman, soldier. I saw the really basic stuff, and I was never really encouraged to look inward.
And that's why, that's why I really want to get this across to everyone. Like, just stop. Worry. Like, I know it's hard because we're all so stressed to get to the finish line, but you're like, there is no finish line. Like, there's no finish line. Like, sorry to burst.
It's an open secret here at Braemar.
Yeah, it's not. There's not. It doesn't exist. And you can talk to me 2 years from now, and I could be doing completely something different. I think what is your map is yourself. Your what is true to you. And so instead of worrying about what is going to be my job, what degree do I need to get to that job, the real worry that you need to be worrying about is, who are you? What do you need? What's important to you? And what's so funny is they're all, everyone's looking for the answers out here in the world, but the answers are inside. And you'd have to sit with that, just be quiet. And you just need to not trying to find the answers, but just ask the questions and see what comes up, and not judge yourself for anything that comes up, and just accept yourself wholeheartedly for who you are. And then get smart and strategic about how you're going to turn that into something to make money, because that's the key.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be lucky, and you can do all the work, and you figure out, I just want to be a doctor. Yeah. Oh my God, that's just the best. Good for you. Way to go. But it wasn't so simple for me, and I don't think it will be simple for most people. And listen, you can search and find all you want and realize you want all these things, and then realize, yeah, well, you know what I need more than anything else is security and stability and money, and I can get the fulfillment that I need from other things in life. You don't have to get everything from a job. I do. That's just me, but that's not the golden standard. I'd say the golden standard, what most people do, is they realize a job's a job, they make their money from their job, and then they go home and they get fulfillment from other areas in their life. I just personally can't do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hold you up as a gold standard, even if you won't. I think that what you've described is what I would call the good life.
Trying.
And it doesn't mean you have to have it today, but it's certainly something to aim for and start, moving the pieces across the board to get there, right? Maybe that is taking a job that's not giving you everything so that you can have the money to learn more skills, experience more things, right? Build that set that's going to allow you to take more control of your life later on. But in general, moving away from fragmentation and towards integration in all aspects of your life seems to be the way. I've never met anyone who's moving towards integration who feels like they're moving backwards, Speaking of which, you moved from the Bachelor of Education 2015. You were describing a couple of the early experiences in classrooms and saying, holy smokes, these cooking programs are not what they could be, and not by a long shot. Just to provide some meat to those bones, the University of Waterloo, I know we're rivals. We're going to take their studies anyways. 2022 study of over 10,000 students in primary school programs across 6 developed nations. Chile, Mexico, US, Canada, Australia, and UK, found that among those nations, and we take that as a representative sample of probably much of the rest of the world, Canadian children are the least participatory in school programs. Less than 5%, or around 5% of Canadian primary school kids are taking part in a school food program, and only 27% of the most food insecure young people in Canada have access to or are participating in. This is something that we, in Canadian schools, don't focus on very much. Yeah. And the Chef Shai revolution is coming, but it's not completely here yet, right? We're still waiting. When you look at the robustness and the seriousness of nutrition programs in public schools elsewhere, it's interesting to ask why our revolution didn't happen. In most countries, it happened around the 40s, 50s, end of World War II, beginning of the social welfare programs. We tend to put the onus on families. We tend to still rely on families of all demographics, of all different experience levels, to be providing the nutritional standards for their students. Canada's food guide didn't change. When I first started teaching our physical education program here at Braemar, that was in late 2017, early 2018. We were still using that rainbow. I know, I had the exact same thought. I was like, still? The rainbow food guide. I'm not going to get into it, but anyone who grew up here in Canada probably knows what I'm talking about. Balderdash, like just absolute nonsense. And thank goodness January 2019 rolls around and we get a new food guide, which I think is quite a massive improvement.
It's definitely much better.
But you're coming along at a time when I think there's an appetite, no pun intended, for this type of change. But it's a long time coming, and it's much needed. For the students out there who are listening to this and saying, boy, Chef Shai's got some wisdom, some powerful things to say about how I might get into that integrated life of purpose. Can you talk about what the process of starting Rooks to Cooks, becoming your own boss, founder and president of this cooking intervention program, or maybe you can kind of describe how you saw it at that time and how it's continued to evolve?
Sure. So as mentioned, Teachers College, running these cooking clubs, like what the aha moment was for me, which turned everything upside down, was legitimately this one moment where we were making fajitas and I held up a pepper, like a bell pepper, and one of my students was like, Miss Mandel, like, what is that? Mm-hmm. I'm like, what? Yeah. What are you talking? Like, haha, like what is that? I've never seen that before. This is a grade 7 student, okay, and not in an area like that. Like it's an area, but it's a middle class area. So what was shocking to me is that a 13 going on 13-year-old has never seen a pepper before. And then I said, it's a pepper. Oh, I know what a pepper is, but they've only ever seen it cut up. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was like one after the other, realizing that there's this like a food literacy gap that I didn't even realize how large that gap was that exists. And then still a 12, 13-year-old has yet to pick up a knife and cut themselves a pepper for snack. Like, then there's that self-sufficiency independence gap. And I just said at that, like in that moment, I was just like, taken by that and like letting that sink in for me, realizing, going home and reflecting, like, why I'm not going to be a math teacher, a science teacher, a phys ed teacher. Like I could be, and I could be good at it, but this is a need. It's going back to need versus want versus everything else. Like this is a need that exists that's way bigger than me. And I feel like I can bring something to the table that's different and unique from other people. And no one else is doing it. So I'm going to do it. So at that point, I decided, I'll finish teachers college and I'll get my certificate. And then I'll come back to Toronto and I'll go to culinary school, because at that point I had been working in the industry as a chef and a cook for, I think it was 9 years at the time. I started when I was 14, and I don't know how old I was at that point. Math, it's been a while since I taught math. So then I came back. I said, I'll go to culinary school, because I had never been taught. And a female in the industry, it's a different world than a man in the industry. You are overlooked. The male head chefs will rarely give you any time of day, let alone invest in your growth and education. So it was like, even though I was in the industry for 9 years, no one taught me anything. I watched, I learned, or I went on YouTube, or I, read books, or I experimented. So I was very independent. And I often took pastry chef positions because people would leave me alone. The chef never really got involved with pastry. Okay. So it was also like a playground for me. I had a lot of fun. So I wanted to go to culinary school. I wanted to make sure that I had all my bases covered, and I wanted to get the experience and the perspective of what it would be like to be a student in a culinary environment. So went to culinary school. I did not learn a single thing other than how to develop these programs, like how to structure a culinary program for kids and for people. demos and then practicals and how lessons were conducted and so on. So I networked and I loved meeting a million people. That was a lot of fun. So that was the purpose of culinary school. And then after culinary school ended, I immediately put the wheels into motion to start Rooks to Cooks. But that was a dream and a vision that occurred in that classroom when that student said, what is that pepper? You know, what is that vegetable? That was just I need to create an environment. I need to create a program. I need to do something that educates youth on how to cook and food literacy, because it's not happening. It's not going to happen in the home. It's not going to happen in the school. And it's not going to happen, clearly it hasn't been happening enough outside of those environments to make any difference. So this is a void. This isn't something that I can fill. And then I did it, opened the first location in 2017. It was a wild success, filled the camp. It was me and 2 other staff, 170 students in the summer, just rocked it out, did crazy stuff. I bought 30 chickens one day, whole chickens. This is the Tots of Pots program. They're 5 to 7 years old. I got everyone and I'm let's butcher some chickens. They're I'm having a mental breakdown, come on, let's get past it. Let's appreciate that this is an animal. So did all of that with them. And it was so awesome to see what that program did for them as individuals, hearing all the emails and the calls from parents, my kid is literally a different person. What did you do? Well, I actually got them to cook real food. I gave them a knife. I gave them responsibility. I empowered them. I shared all my knowledge and skills. It's not that hard. Yeah. And then they took that and they ran with it. And that's why they're different, because they realized what they're capable of and they saw it and they made it happen. Cooking is a constant proof that you're capable, that you can accomplish amazing things. You've turned nothing into something, right?
It's the nature of the things that are most fundamental to our lives that they have more what I'll call flow availability than almost anything else. Because we both need and love and are entertained by and can share these things, when we cook, we are putting ourselves in, I think, what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi would describe as the ultimate flow position, or the position where you can enter a flow state. It requires, that you understand the challenge that's set before you completely, which is what a recipe is. Or if you look at a finished product and you say, we're making this today, that there's no better way to kind of understand the full extent of your challenge. You need to be fully immersed in something that demands the fullness of your skills but does not exceed them, which is kind of I think of as maybe one of the coolest aspects of your job, kind of aiming certain skill sets and certain types of cooking or dishes at a specific, say, age group or specific group of kids. Super cool that you had them butchering chickens and getting to see all the way from animal to process to plate where their food is coming from and gain that appreciation. And I think that sort of mindfulness of
respect. And it's what really, something that's very important to me is I view every life equal. I have even trouble killing bugs. I just we're all equal here. We all have I don't know, why is my life more important than your life? And there's not that doesn't exist. That the fact that we go to the grocery store and meat is packed up in all these packs and on the front of the package, the logo is a cow and a baby cow and they're frolicking in the grass and loving their life. That cow did not even see grass, So it's important for me in our program that we really don't sugarcoat what's going on here, and that if you're going to choose to eat meat, which is great, I love meat, I eat meat, then you have many options of what you can choose. You can choose to get the cheapest stuff, but also be aware of what you're choosing. Let's teach them exactly what's going on behind all of those options, and then they can choose. And if they choose the cheaper option, no judgment, but just I judge only when you don't know because you've chosen not to know, because it's easier. And it's not comfortable to make those choices when you know that cow has been, pumped with hormones and was in a cage their whole life. And the whole process of how to produce that chicken breast that's in a plastic styrofoam container also has ramifications and issues with that. Listen, we're living in a really messed up world right now with the food industry. So you can blind yourself, just like any other any other issue in the world. You can keep yourself ignorant, and it's heavy. So I don't judge that people don't want to do that. But if you're going to come to Rooks to Cooks, I'm going to give it to you straight, you know, like I'm going to tell you what's going on, because it's your responsibility as a consumer, in my opinion, to know what's going on behind your choices.
Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, I can't imagine a more important message for our students at this point. You've talked about purpose in life and finding integration, and you've talked about our responsibility to make conscious decisions around our food. I think a lot of young people, until just a few years ago, myself included, are really unaware of how bad things are out there. Like the food industry is an absolute mess.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sure you know better than most.
No, it's hard.
Yeah.
You know?
I would encourage any of the audience, if you get a chance, check out the podcast episode we did with Jason Fonger, who's a vegan triathlete, and he came in and we were supposed to talk a lot about sports and performance, and then we ended up spending the second half of the podcast talking mostly about like animal rights and the big agriculture and all that. Mm-hmm. And just like I did in that podcast, I would point anyone who's interested in following up on this to the University of California's Climate Lab. I know it doesn't sound like it's directly related to nutrition. In this case, it is. They do a wonderful series of videos on both the environmental implications of the food we eat, but just they get into the details of what the industrial meat agriculture sector is doing, both to our planet and to our stomachs and to the animals that are kind of in the midst of that dynamic. It's not pleasant viewing. It's not fun to know these things, but with knowledge comes power. With that power comes responsibility, but I think I don't think anyone would argue that having more control and more power over the basic terms of our life is desirable, right? And you're giving that. You're giving that to young people at an earlier age than they are receiving it from our education system as it stands. Yeah. Can you just give us the details? Talk us through a day or a week in the Rooks to Cooks program for let's say high school students, since that's how I met you and those are the age group we've been working with.
So the day in the life of a Rooks to Cooks student who's in high school?
Perhaps, or maybe if you prefer a bit younger. So
our programs are really catered towards like our typical programs. And Rooks to Cooks, like in a nutshell, other than being GTA's leading culinary school for kids, because there's nothing better. If we're not the best, we're not enough, you know.
You heard it right. GTA's, say it again, GTA's number one, leading?
GTA's only, no, there's others out there, but GTA's leading. GTA's best, you know, putting out the best work there for sure. Our bread and butter is our summer cooking camps, because when our kids off in the summer, and when can we make the biggest impact? When we have them all in one place under our roof, you know, following our curriculum on a more consistent basis, right? Like that 1 week, it's like cooking crash course, you know, like it's pretty awesome. So our program is structured in week-to-week slots, new group of kids every week and new menus every week, various skill level, like the menus have different skill levels, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, different number of recipes a day, depending on that, anywhere from 3 to 5. At the end of each week, we have a full-scale restaurant that we put on with the kids. You know, imagine like Friday night at like the hottest restaurant, but all the employees are children.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's kind of what we got going on. It's like literally like a tasting platter of everything that you could have and more about this world, this industry, and teaching them. So that's the structure of our camps, and our camps are our bread and butter. It's like summer culinary school, essentially. And then throughout the year, you know, we do other stuff. We do in-school workshops, which are more targeted and kind of connected to the stuff you learn in school, math, science, language, art, you name it. There's the co-curricular connections that exist in those workshops, and we have the in-home business where we're running, you know, birthday parties, private lessons, classes, stuff like that. And then our after-school programs that exist in schools or in our own sites. And that's more of like a once a week for the duration of a term. So this is what we got going on now, and we'll probably continue to expand on in the years coming. But our camps are our biggest. We have 16 individual locations this year. Wow. So I have over 100 staff that are going to be working this summer. And what's been big on my radar is creating opportunities for high school kids, because they're aged out of camp. You know, yeah. Who wants to go to camp when they're 15? You know,
is
some
it your
people.
Camp?
Pardon?
Is it your camp?
Oh, any camps.
I'd like to. I'm 33. I'd still
no, I know, right? I want to go back to camp. That'd be awesome. But I think at that age group, they're like less like gung ho about like summer camp and more interested in, having life or experiences that are going to infuse something else for them, not just
independence.
Independence, yeah. So instead of saying come to camp, I've created these CIT programs, chef in training, counselor in training. They're avenues for, it's essentially volunteer work, but they're avenues to gain these experiences. You can choose to work under the counselors, where you're going to be gaining more experience working with kids, learning how to, work with kids. That's more like the goal. Or choose the chef in training stream of this volunteer work, which is work with the KAs, kitchen assistants, work with them, learning how to measure ingredients, prep, conduct inventory, finishing food. So they have the option, like, do you want to go into that or that? And then from there, I've kind of built in a funnel into work. So from the CIT world, where they have to work 2 consecutive weeks minimum. I don't mess around with anything less. You can't really gain anything from less than 2 weeks.
Right.
Like, even then's short. So 2 weeks minimum commitment. And then from there, they become candidates for my junior kitchen assistant position, which is a paid role. I've added this year. So that's a part-time position, 12:30 to 5:30, and that's more for this perfect age group. They don't want to work a full-time job. It's a lot, and they can make a month-to-month commitment. So you can commit to July, you can commit to August, you can commit to both. So keep it very flexible, and that funnels right into a full-time kitchen assistant position for the following year. And then that funnels. So for me, now that I've kind of got our program perfected and I get that and I got the staffing and that's good, now it's like I want my new area of playground. I guess my new playground is creating valuable work and experience opportunities for younger people who aren't ready to jump full throttle into the workforce, but are in that exploration phase that I was, full circle now, like want to just experiment and see what they like, what they need in a job and a career. Because these 3 jobs, volunteer, part-time or full-time, these roles that I have developed, they give them so much opportunity for just experimenting and seeing how they like it, and not like committing their whole life, like to a high school student, like a summer's a whole life, for me probably as well, but not committing their entire summer to playing around.
Do you remember reading any John Dewey when you were in doing your B.Ed?
So I have an embarrassing thing to share.
Okay. Hit me.
I haven't read a book since Charlotte's Web.
Whoa!
In grade 6.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I don't read. It's not the way that I learn.
Yeah.
I learn by talking, doing, videos.
We're in a good world for it,
Yeah.
for that kind of learning right now.
I'm not a reader.
All good.
Yeah.
I won't ask you to jump from, who is it, E.B. White, Charlotte's Web?
Yes, I think.
I won't ask you to jump from Charlotte's Web to John Dewey. It's not important. Basically, John Dewey is the developer, early 1900s, of the concept of experiential education. And he's been a great inspiration to me and really a model for all of my thoughts in various areas of education, cooking amongst them. You nailed the tenets or the requirements of a proper experiential education as laid out by Dewey and his acolytes. Especially the idea that it should not consume the entirety of your life and it should not be burdensome, right? That you need time to be in the battle, and then you need time to step away from the experience, reflect on it, right? Maybe live other parts of your life that are enjoyable and not necessarily taken away from you by that, and then go back to it. And we have all kinds of learning cycles and frameworks that are built on that idea, but you don't need them because you're already nailing it.
I guess I don't need to read.
That's
clearly
right.
coming up with philosophies that exist out there already.
This will be the only podcast where
Maybe
I
should
allow
write
this
a
kind
book.
of talk.
That's the next project.
There you go. Yeah. Where was I going with that? You've thrown me off because now I'm, for the first time in my life, agreeing with someone who hasn't read since youth. But that's fine. I wanted to talk about when a parent sends a young person to one of these camps. We'd likely ask them, what do you expect for your young person? And they say, well, I hope they have fun. I hope they're safe. And maybe I hope they learn to cook. What would your answer be to that parent beyond those fairly obvious things? If I was running a basketball camp, I would expect the parent to want their kid to be safe and have fun and learn to play basketball. What are they getting out of it beyond that at a Rooks to Cooks camp?
So, like, what I'd say to that is, we're teaching your kid to cook. That is like a given. you're sending them to a cooking camp, they're going to learn how to cook. They're going to learn better than you. They're going to come home and then start criticizing your knife skills, which happens all the time. Like,
knife
I
skills
get
are
like
life
emails
skills, man.
being like, what did you turn my child into? Like, I didn't realize how bad I was at cooking. And they also take home all that information, the valuing the ethics behind food and, all of that they take home. They're going to get that. That's like, no duh, it's going to happen. But what they get in the process is that independence, that self-sufficiency, that confidence, that self-expression. They get that self-awareness, the understanding that there's so much more than just me, and maybe I want to do things, that intrinsic motivation to like use their time on this planet for something other than just themselves. Mm-hmm. So like that's what's really important, and that's what they get as well as the cooking. So it's like,
yeah,
it's like the baker's dozen. They get a lot more than what they're paying for.
I was going to say, the cooking's almost secondary to some of those things.
The cooking is literally the vessel.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how we're teaching them, but this is what they're learning. It goes far beyond the cooking. The cooking's like the duh, but then it's all this other stuff that comes with it, which is why I just love cooking so much as the vessel for education. Like if I had to create a school, all we would do is cook, and then we would teach science in our cooking lessons. We would teach math in our cooking lessons. We would teach everything that we're teaching already, the same curriculum. It would just be delivered through cooking or working with food or more hands-on experiential learning, because that's what engages people, kids and adults all alike. Like, it's way more fun to learn when you're doing something than just looking at a screen and listening to someone and then having to memorize that information and regurgitate it on a test. That's like, think about how much extra work that we're putting in to care enough to absorb that, rather than just make it more like authentic. Like, you're already having a good time, and this is adding so much more benefit to your life already. You're learning these recipes, you're learning the nutrition, you're learning how to nourish yourself and other people, but then you're learning all this other stuff too. Yeah. It's just like so much bang for your buck, right? So that's what I would say to these parents. And to speak to that, like, I don't like to cookie cutter everything, because just like for me, my creative freedom and my role is really important. So with my chefs and the chefs who are teaching these programs, I encourage them to develop their own chef's missions. So everyone has a chef's mission. Rookster Cooks has its own mission. The company has its mission, which is to teach children to become more self-sufficient, independent, confident, whatever, what I shared already. But everyone has their own individual chef's mission. Like, my chef's mission is to inspire my students to use food and cooking as a way to practice self-love and express joy and love to others. Because going back full circle, what we shared about one of the reasons why I love this so much is because it is my way to express that to other people. And if they could only take one thing away from me, only one thing, then I want them to have that. And so that's what inspires me every day in my role when the kids are like really getting under my skin, and then I just remind myself of my chef's mission. And I get myself back on track. Other chefs in our environment, their chef's missions are to teach them about food scarcity. Some chefs are saying, you know what, I want to use this as a way to encourage community. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone cares about something different, and that's great. I encourage that. Like, every educator has something different to bring to the table. So yeah, there's math teachers, but every math teacher is a person, and they have something that they can teach these kids that is not just math. So I get them to tap into that while teaching the cooking, while teaching all the other soft skills that I think our program just naturally does teach. And that's what makes our program so powerful and life-changing for these kids. It's very intentional, just like me, self-reflective, self-aware, and that's why it's so special. So, I don't know I don't even remember what the question was, but
you nailed it.
Yeah? Okay, good.
You covered it and more.
Perfect.
I feel bad speaking after that, because that's exactly the message that I wanted to deliver to these students. You just, like,
great.
I'm not going to end the podcast now, but we totally could, and that would be enough, guys. If you take nothing else away, just listen to the last 2 minutes there of Shai talking, because you said it all. I love the metaphor, and our first non-cooking metaphor of the day, of the vessel, that everybody can get into this boat and bring who they are to this journey together. I think Thankfully, that's where a lot of progressive education is heading. The whole project-based learning idea that we are going to teach business and math and financial management and language skills through, say, let's learn how to start a restaurant, right, together as a group. And we're going to find our strengths and we're going to find our leadership types and all that through this project.
Yeah.
I can't think of a more universal project than making good, sustainable, healthy food for the people who are around you. So, I see that daily when we run our, weekly, our cooking club Wednesday nights here at Braemar College. We got a lot of students here who are on their English language learning journey. Their ESLC, ESLD, and there are a lot of interactions on a day-to-day basis, just operating around here, downtown Toronto, out in the hallways, lunchtime, whatever, that can be a little difficult for them because there's language being spoken very fast, very informally, and that can be quite alienating. When they come to cooking club, that may be one of the best language learning experiences that they get in their week. They've got their recipe right in front of them that they can refer to again and again, and they're engaging in language learning unconsciously, right? It's completely in keeping with the mission of the moment, which is make good food, right? They get, in a lot of cases, these students get to work with people from their language group, some of whom may be, language background, some of whom may be a bit further along in their journey. And I would put that experience up against any classroom instruction that you can show me in terms of its learning outcomes. And as you said, we could apply that to any range of subjects, business, math, English, what have you.
Yeah.
Right, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. It makes complete sense because it's fun. It's real life. Like, it's real life. It's happening in their face right now. It's productive. It's everything and more. Teaching entrepreneurship too. Like, why not develop a recipe, cost it out, create a fake bakery, project the sales over time. Like,
bingo.
To me, these are projects that are just like fun, interesting, can actually be used. Like, if a kid's, they have this project and they love it and they do so well, they're like, great, I can make some money. And they start a bakery 3 years later. Like, it's just, let's just focus on, education in a different way than it has been, in a way that's like more real life, practical. Like, why can't it be that?
Well, your current aim, if I understand it correctly, is to kind of create these pathways or these avenues from the learning that you're doing to a type of early professionalism.
Yeah.
And why that isn't the aim of everything that we do in these schools. Like, every math teacher has to deal with the regular question from the students, like, how am I going to use this? Why is this necessary for my life? And there's ongoing arguments about things like algebra and their place in the core curriculum. Like, I've never had to use it in my professional life, but you know what question I never get asked when I'm coaching a cooking club? What's this for, right? How is this going to affect my life? It's obvious, right?
Exactly.
It requires no explanation. And so my final question to you is going to be built around those ideas. Let's you and I imagine that we get to start a school, okay? You run Rook's Cooks for another couple of years, and then you get $1 billion valuation, and we sell that, and I'll...
I already sold the company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so hopefully it doesn't get $1 billion valuation and I lost all this money I could have made. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But I sold the company 2 years ago.
All right. Let me come right back to that.
Yeah.
But stay in the imaginary space with me for a second. We're running a school together and we want to do things right when it comes to cooking. What place do you see for cooking, nutrition, maybe even food production and sourcing in a normative school setting?
Okay. So rather than getting too romanticized about my visions of just like only teaching everyone through cooking. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Brownies for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's a step by step. I think the first step is having the government or someone in power give us a bunch of money and have like Rooks to Cooks become, pretty much the vendor for culinary education across the school board. I've had this conversation with the school board before. The money is there. I don't know why they're not pulling the trigger. I've suggested straight up options. Like, so one of my visions was if a school does not have the facilities, then food trucks, like legitimately a bus that we can turn into a food truck, or we have portables. That becomes their room. Yeah. If they don't have a space to provide to offer this. So that's like solution in that case. But regardless, don't treat it as another subject where I don't think it's realistic to think that in the next 5 to 10 years, cooking is going to become like a math or a science or language. I'm a believer, but I'm a hopeless romantic, I guess you could say. Like, I'm hopeful, but I'm not set. I haven't seen enough prioritization to believe that can be in 5 to 10 years. Regardless, I think in 5 to 10 years, there will be a place for culinary education in the school system. And the step-by-step approach to that would be, at the beginning, it's treated as like a workshop sort of format to supplement curriculum. Let's say you're teaching a health unit. Well, ring, ring, hello, rooks to cooks, whatever. We come in and we teach part of that health unit. We already have a curriculum. We have a workshop format. We have it all. We just come to your school and we run it for you as part of your curriculum. It's our curriculum, but it's part of your. I should have had 3 espressos today instead of 2. What's unit? It's a unit, right? Yeah. So you're teaching a unit, and we come and teach a part of that unit, and we teach that across a ton of schools. So that's like plan A, at least plan first step to this whole grand, plan. That's how it starts off. Workshops, supplementing units, bringing the curriculum to you, running it for you. Eventually, when there's enough money and there's enough investment, because it's going to take time, not just money, but it's going to take like building out facilities. You can cook in a classroom, and reason why our program is so mobile is because we use portable gas burners. Any classroom can be turned into a kitchen. Yep. I just need a sink close by so I can do dishes later, but predominantly, any table can be turned into a workstation. We bring coolers if need be, if there's no refrigeration. We've already figured out all of the, challenges of being mobile. That's what has made Rooks Cook so successful thus far. We go into churches and run our camps. Wow. So we've already figured that out. So going into schools is a no-brainer. And running these workshops is a no-brainer. And running these, units as supplement to other units and other curriculum is a no-brainer. So that's how it begins. And then once everyone sees how amazing it is and realizes, yes, we should probably figure this out and make this a permanent thing, then the build-out occurs in schools. Do what you got to do to make a classroom, like a culinary classroom, with the proper ventilation and the sinks and the dishwashers and everything that you need. It's only like 1 or 2 classes. And then that becomes a culinary department. Just like the math department or the science department, that is what's next. Why not a culinary department? And why not work with other teachers and other departments? Going back to the cross-curricular potential of what cooking can be for a school. That's what I see. Yeah. It's cooking is not its own subject matter, but we can work with other subjects to teach cooking and teach math at the same time. Yeah. 2 birds with 1 stone. And that's what I see.
I think probably provide a much better alternative for school lunches or a school food program. Like you're not just learning, you can literally feed the school.
That's the next step.
Okay.
Once we're in, then the culinary department gets built out even more, and then it becomes a self-sustaining program where we have the garden program and we have the the greenhouses, and all of that is occurring, like the rooftop greenhouses, and the fact that if it's an elementary, middle, and high school, the younger kids are a part of those programs that the food feeds the other programs, and then it becomes job opportunities for the high school students. It's just like this. Yeah, I'm excited.
Wheel. Next week we're going to have Maria Solikovsky, who is a local homestead farmer. She has a sustainable homestead in East Toronto, and we have our students volunteering in her garden 3 seasons out of 4. And we bring some of that food back and we use it for cooking club. It's a very small version of what you're describing, but the students, I think, get that little inkling of what's possible when these reciprocal relationships are built and begin to circulate. And like kale has never tasted so good. You know what I mean? When you buy it from a grocery store, you're not often going to remark on the quality of the kale. But when you pulled it out of the ground yourself and washed it and chopped it and cooked it, and then you serve it to a friend and they say, "Boy, this is good," what better feeling is there?
100%.
Right? Yeah. It's been wonderful to watch, and it's really given me some real insights into where education needs to go in every phase, and it's directly towards that type of reciprocity. Mm-hmm. Are you at all up on the super cool public school food programs in Japan?
No.
Have you seen this?
No.
They've become quite popular as a model. I think they're being adopted in a couple of the Scandinavian countries, even in the past few years. They call it kyushoku, and it is a part of every single public school in Japan and has been since 1953 or 55.
Wow.
There's a really cool video on YouTube that people can use to capture all of this information, because I didn't do a deep dive. I just gathered it from one or two sources. But the video that I was watching, I think it was from a fella whose channel is called Life Where I Live. He made this really nice little 15-minute documentary where he spent 2 days in a public school kitchen in Japan. It is unbelievable. It is an industrial restaurant quality kitchen. One of the facts that stood out to me, there are 12 teachers on staff in this primary school where he was. There are 13 kitchen staff.
Wow.
And there's a full-time nutritionist in this program. And they show how from grade 1 in the school, from grade 1 to 6, steadily and increasingly the students are involved in the creation and the serving of the lunches to everyone in the school. It feeds the entire school. Those families that are able to pay for it, or contribute to a pool that pays for each school. Those who aren't are subsidized by social welfare. The vast majority of the ingredients and the food that is eaten was grown locally. The students and the school have relationships with the local growers who deliver on a daily basis. They talk about how their 3 primary goals with this cooking program are A, guaranteeing the health of the students, B, passing on Japanese culture and the culture of food creation, which I think we've really missed out on quite a bit in this part of the world, and C, as you mentioned, which kind of made me think of this, a real appreciation for the amount of work and the people who go into the creation of the food that you eat, right? Unless you, in a lot of our schools, unless you talk to the kitchen staff in those 10 seconds when you're passing by with your tray, you don't really get a sense of the people and the work that's going into that food. But these kids are at the front and center of it. And I'm watching this video and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this has got to be some sort of exception. This has got to be one of the rich schools in the Tokyo area. The gentleman near the end of the video put that question to bed. He showed the chart of the average income demographics across the however many prefectures of Tokyo. The one that the school he was at was the poorest area. It was the single lowest income area on that list.
Wow.
And this school was like, night and day compared to how we treat food and how we treat cooking in our schools. I see that as you just described, being completely possible, right? We can build science labs, we can build, multi-million-dollar gymnasium facilities, but we can't build a restaurant quality kitchen for these kids. Which is more necessary?
We don't even need a restaurant quality kitchen.
No, but yeah, we could. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Like
we don't have to go to the end of the spectrum in terms of quality. We can do it. We can do it in steps, baby steps. We can do it pretty relaxed. Get some gas burners. You know how they have the laptops that travel to class. Why can't it be this walking culinary classroom too?
Yeah,
it's not that much equipment.
When we started with Rooks to Cooks in 2018, we didn't have any facilities for it, and I had no idea how this was going to work. And you were incredibly helpful. You helped to source all of the equipment that we needed. We're now in the Great Hall just behind me. We've got one fridge, we've got a sink nearby, and it's exactly as you described. It's all the equipment we need using gas ranges. We don't use a full stovetop. We don't use an oven. So the act of finding recipes that are going to work with our equipment is both fun and challenging in a creative way. But we have yet to, I don't think we've even remade a single dish once. There's so much available now that we can just keep things fresh and new every single week. We haven't felt any real limitations. And it was low expense and low effort to get all of that equipment that we needed. Much thanks to you for that. I certainly wouldn't have been nearly as capable. But the barriers to entry for this type of dream are quite low.
Very.
Right.
Very.
So I guess I don't know how to wrap this up beyond simply yelling to every educator out there that start thinking about this and pushing it where you can.
Yeah.
What final message beyond the beautiful and wise things that you've said already would you like to add just to finish this off?
through everything that I've been through with Rooks to Cooks, growing it, like putting everything that I have into it, almost losing it through COVID, rebuilding it with virtual, and then now selling it. Like that decision was for me because it was taking a toll on my body, on my heart, and everything. Like, so even though I thought I was doing what made me so happy, it's like, not realizing that at the end of the day, you have to prioritize yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And so, yeah, food is one way you can do that. Learn about nutrition, take cooking courses, just get the basics down so you can nourish yourself, because that burrito that costs $5 tastes so good, and then, it's cheap. But if you continue to make these choices, it's going to catch up to you. It's going to take a lot more than it gave you in that moment. So like, you're young, everyone, you're young. This is the time to take care of yourself, your body, your mind, your soul. Get self-care routines built into your routine. Every day, have something for you, like whether it's both on the physical level, the mental, the spiritual, all the different areas of health. Make a little choice, like a little routine in each of those categories, and build it into your day-to-day. And you will keep yourself nice and stable. You'll be equipped and energized to handle life's challenges. Because if you think that it's hard right now, like I'm sure every adult in the world has told you that it's just going to get harder. And the truth is, it really is. Yeah. I don't want to be just like another like broken record in your life, but it is. Like, it's like playing a video game. Every level is more challenging. Every year of your life and every next phase of your life is more challenging, but you're better equipped to handle it because you've gone through the earlier challenges. You've figured out how to take care of yourself. You've done all that work. So take care of yourself, learn how to cook, be true to yourself, figure out who you are, what you want, what you need in your life. Try to block out the noise of the world and all the pressures that exist. Be a good person, and feed yourself well. I think that's what I want them to take away from it.
You only got one body, folks. Feed it well.
You only got one body.
We could go for days and days talking about this. When you're mentioning the consequences of not learning some of this stuff, don't get to 30 without knowing how to budget your money, without learning how to select good food and learning how to cook it for yourself. Because life does come to get you, and you better have the basic skills nailed when it does, because it doesn't slow down. It doesn't wait for you. And my final cooking metaphor of the day, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world, right? Like if you're paying $5 and you're getting easy food delivered to you in a styrofoam container every day, the costs aren't as obvious, but they're coming. They're on the back end. We talk about obesity rates, and we talk about even things like congestion in the streets with our delivery system the way it is now. Talk about industrial agriculture and who's providing the meat and the veg for some of these fast food companies. Those costs are very, very real, and we're going to be seeing them more pronounced in the future. Don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution.
Yeah, exactly. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to be better. Or if you are that person who is the best of the others, then shine in that role and inspire others. Like, you have two choices. So yeah. I really hope that you make the right choice, everyone. And for yourself, but also to be like a contributing member to society and like do good for this world.
Amen. If you're an educator out there and you're hoping to make another good choice, I was telling you, find yourself a Chef Shai out there, because it changes the culture of your school and it changes the way you think about your own health and the relationship you have with your students. Shai, I can't thank you enough. You've started something here at Braemar that we're really proud of, and that the students end up remembering and benefiting from for years to come. And it really is thanks primarily to you and the work you've done with Rooks to Cooks. If folks want to find out more about you and what you're doing right now, where can they look?
Our website.
Okay.
If anyone listening is interested in those CIT programs, or even coming out and joining me part-time work this summer, then email me at chefshay@rookstocooks.ca. I want to see a resume, and I want to see a cover letter as to why this would be like a valuable experience for you, and kind of practicing what we already shared in this podcast. I'd love to hear from you.
Beautiful. I might have a few international students that send in your way this summer.
Great, please.
Folks, this has been Mike Helsby with Chef Shai Mandel here, Braemar Life Skills Academy podcast. Looking forward to more great conversations like this to come. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
And join me again next week for another podcast where I'll be speaking to Maria Solikovsky. Maria is the founder of Wild by Nature Garden Homestead.